Welcome to the Local Business Insider Podcast with the Small Business Owners Alliance. This is a space where we sit down with real entrepreneurs and talk about the wins, the lessons, and the honest moments that come with running a business. I'm your host, Nicole Redenbach, small business owner, insurance broker, and founder of the Small Business Owners Alliance here in the Omaha area. Whether you're local to Nebraska or just love learning from real-world business stories, you're in the right place.
Today, I'm honored to speak with Amy Robbins of Clare Senior Advisors. For over 16 years, Amy has guided families through the challenges of senior care, memory care, and life transitions with deep integrity and compassion. Her work isn't just about service, it's about relationships, caring before a person is ready, staying true under pressure, and investing long-term. In our conversation, we'll explore her journey and how planting seeds of trust now can benefit any business down the road. Amy, thanks so much for joining us on the Local Business Insider Podcast. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for inviting me, Nicole. I love the opportunity to be able to spread a little bit more information about, what the senior industry looks like.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So, Amy, can you tell us a little bit about your journey? How did you get into senior care advising, and what keeps you passionate about working in this field?
Well, I would say my journey started many years ago, just helping take care of grandparents, especially one of my grandmas that I was closest to. But my journey really began in the senior industry with representing a company that sold therapy, occupational therapy, PT, and speech therapy to nursing homes and critical access hospitals. And their niche market were really in small rural towns. So it was really a great starting point, I think, in my career to work with a company where they were striving to bring therapy to communities that might not have easy access to that. And from there, I was able to take a job back in the early days of work from home jobs where I was a senior living advisor and would advise families over the phone. So the downside of that job was that I didn't get to meet people.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Right. But I learned really quickly about all the different struggles that people were having to figure out the best options, whether that be for their parent, might have been for a spouse, a neighbor that they were very close to, a senior in their life, and they needed access to information on assisted living, memory care, and home care services.
When a family does begin the process of starting to kind of consider looking at alternative care or maybe possibly moving a senior out of their residence, what are some of the first conversations that you have with those people that are involved in the process, and what kind of concerns do they usually have?
Good question. So the very first conversation that we have, with the family or with the individual directly is just number one, understanding what their challenges are, their diagnoses, their struggles living independently at home. And then I want to know more about what their wishes are, if they really are wanting to age in place at home. If that's their goal, then I have resources that I can help them meet that goal for as long as it's, safely possible to do that. Or, maybe they already have come to the realization that their home environment is not safe with, the amount of stairs they have, or that they live alone, and they may already be at that point that they know that they are looking for that 24-hour nursing care in an assisted living or memory care setting. So I'm getting to know where they're at that point, and then that's where we really start the journey of having this relationship where they know they can call and text and update me, and that decisions don't need to be made overnight. If it isn't a situation that's not urgent for them, we just kind of go through the process of what can we add for services now, and then basically we educate a lot. It's educating them on the financial piece of it. If they have to move, what does that look like? Are there any benefits that they can tap into, whether that be long-term care insurance or a veteran's benefit? I really map out for them the long term, how many years their money would last, because they hear a price tag and it sounds, it sounds like a lot. And when you are able to give them reassurance that, okay, this is going to last you more than 5 years or 10 years, and then also educating them on the communities that, will have the ability to roll over to Medicaid waiver versus a community that, would not be able to continue caring for them if their money did run out. We look at all those things, but it's just a relationship that starts the day one with me understanding what their needs are and then just staying in touch with them to help them along the way.
I love that. Yeah, because it's not an easy decision. It's not something that they can often just flip a switch unless they have to come to terms with it. So I love that you really spend the time and kind of helping them ease into it. And sometimes, I know even just in my own experience, but I'm sure lots of times in yours, you have some family members who may think, okay, it's time that you need to make this transition, but maybe the individual in question isn't ready to do that. And so I love that you also have the options to help age in place safely too.
Absolutely. I know I kind of was talking a lot there, but just also one thing that pops in my head, more so than the financial piece, is as I'm getting to know them, I'm knowing, which communities really stand out in my mind of being the best fit for them, because oftentimes it's not necessarily the community that's right around the corner from their house or the one that, you've got everybody else in the family or neighbors weighing in, well, my mom went to this place and my mom went to that place. And oftentimes that specific individual, their needs, what they need, are not going to be met in a community that someone else's relative was in. And, just zeroing in on the best, 3 options for them to look at first.
That makes sense. And you actually go take them on tours and help them with that too, which I love. So Amy, you have been a member of the Small Business Owners Alliance for quite a while in both chapters 1 and 2. And I know that you invest a lot of time and energy in networking, even outside of our group too. How would you say that networking has really helped you in your business and building relationships and helping more clients?
Well, I can tell you a couple of years ago when I thought about joining, the very first networking group, I was intimidated and thought, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can do this. And then I kind of became like addicted to, going to meet new people every time, different speakers that are educating us. And it has paid in dividends because, not only have there been a few people, excuse me, in each of our groups that I have helped with their family situations, but there have been a lot of people that I've met in different trades and that have helped me. You have helped me. Laura from Chapter 2 has helped me with, her mobile occupational therapy. I've given out a painter's name. I think I've given out at least 5 or 6 names. So I've made those relationships. But then even beyond my own business, I've learned things, from realtors and brokers and financial planners that even just benefit our own family.
That's great. Yeah, I love that when you can be kind of a connector of people for your clients and also, benefit and learning a little bit more that affects your industry too, so you can be of even more service. I think that's great. So your services that you offer are all free for your home advising, which is great, because the last thing people want to worry about is, even more dollars of how they're going to afford things when they're looking at trying to move in long-term care. But I know that there's been times where you've encountered people who, like you said earlier, aren't ready to make that move decision right now. They're just kind of gathering information, understanding more about the process. How do you help care for them and stay connected with them in that long-term relationship as they're still kind of planning without coming across as pushy or salesy?
Well, I definitely try my best to let them know the very first time that we're sitting down that I'm on their, time, that, when the decision is right for them to make, that, I'll be there with them through every step of the way. But I really tried to take the sales out of, senior living. I want to treat them like they're a family member. Now, with that being said, I can share information with them that is helpful to let them know, I've gone through this experience with other families where they've, perhaps maybe waited too long to make that move. And then it's just a harder transition for the specific, senior individual moving into a community. So there is an ideal time when they can make that transition, but I don't come in, kind of hot and heavy, like, we need you to move.
I love that. Yeah, you bring such a real, genuine, caring perspective in everything you do. So I love that. I think that is definitely what sets you apart in what you do, for sure. How is your approach of more of like a giving first, whether it's education or just information and support, paid off? Do you have maybe like a specific story or situation where maybe you invested quite a bit of time in somebody before you actually ended up helping, with a move or closing that out?
Yeah, absolutely. So I had a family I can think of right off the top of several situations, but the one I can think of right off the top of my head, I know both the parents and the daughters, both the first time we sat down said, they're not ready for a change. This isn't going to happen anytime soon. We're just looking at, ways that we can make our home environment safer. I was able to refer them to a physical therapy office that specialized in, patients with dementia, and just, continue to stay in touch with them. I educated them on the cost. And we did the round of tours where we said, okay, we're just getting familiar with these facilities, because some of them may have like a 18-month or 2-year waiting list. If that's the one that they know, after that day of tours, they know in their gut that this is the building they would want their parents to strongly consider, then at that point they really need to go ahead and look at the waiting list, so that it doesn't become just not an option at all if something changes, quickly. So we did that. We first sat down and talked in November. We did the tours by the end of December. And then it was, I would say, March timeframe when we decided, okay, now we're going to do the tour with Mom. Dad had more severe dementia than Mom, but Mom had early stages as well, and she was aware of that. And we did the tour with her, and I remember that day, being with her on the tour, and I remember her just kind of being, afraid that somebody was going to make her make a decision that day. Like, here's this opening in this building. That kind of pressure, like you sign the paperwork the day of the tour. And I, let her know this is still her decision, and that we were all there to support, what was going to be best for them. And it was about a week after that tour that her daughter called and said, "You wouldn't believe it. I can't even believe it myself, but she said she's ready." Oh, and wow. So, that's not always the case. That's not always how it happens. Sometimes it has to be a little bit more encouragement from, the children, because things happen, with like passwords being given out at a bank, them depleting their bank account, things that are happening that are very worrisome, and decisions are made based on those kind of factors. This was just so rewarding to know that she was able to be in the driver's seat still and make that decision.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's a good point. Sometimes we think about safety as just being physical fall risks or not being able to cook for themselves or bathe or things like that. But it really, when you're talking cognitive impairments, can be a lot of other things, like those financial concerns as well. So that's a really good point. I know you invest a lot of time, but you also invest a lot of care and empathy in what you do. How do you kind of protect yourself from burnout and letting that weigh too heavily on you personally and kind of taking on that load of your client case?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm not sure that I do a great job of balancing that completely. But my work doesn't feel like, I don't feel like I'm clocking in to a job. I honestly love my job so much that it doesn't feel like I'm going to get burnt out on it. I also love visiting with somebody over the phone. It might be a 10-minute phone call, like at night or on the weekend, but guess what? That person got to sleep that night knowing that I was now, they had somebody on their side advocating for them, and we were going to figure this all out. That's happened a couple times recently where it's like, I took a 10 p.m. on a Saturday night call, and then was able to get that gentleman placed into assisted living the Thursday after, kind of same scenario, a Saturday morning phone call, and was able to have a tour set up for Monday at 8 a.m. So that we weren't, waiting around and things were moving quickly. And those were situations where it was already evident on the other side that something, they were being forced to make a decision. So yeah. I don't feel like I'm ever going to get burnt out because, I know the situation they've been in, having, cared for my father, and I always want to treat everybody like, as if they were extended family.
That's great. Yeah, I think it really is a different kind of feeling when your work is something that's more of a calling and that you're so invested in. And
right.
I love that. So kind of stepping back, if you could kind of wave a magic wand, if you will, and kind of help society change something about how they view aging or memory care transitions into long-term care or something like that, what would that be? And how do you think it would impact families if you could kind of just change that societal view?
Oh gosh. Well, there's so many different parts of that. First of all, I would say don't be afraid to connect with someone, that has dementia or Alzheimer's. I have been surprised by the people that I've come into contact with who literally are just like afraid and say, I don't know what to say to them. Don't be afraid to connect. Definitely try to go back to something in their past that, maybe they don't remember, what they had for breakfast that morning. But we kind of always joked about, with my dad when he was having memory issues, we would call it St. Thomas More Jeopardy because that's the parish that we grew up, the school that all of us kids went to. And he could tell you who my second grade teacher was, but maybe not tell you, what he was supposed to do later on that afternoon if he had an appointment. He couldn't keep track of that, but he could tell me everything, about our childhood, because obviously that was in his long-term memory and that was very important to him. So I guess that's the big thing I would want to make an impact on is don't look at, the disability that they have, kind of with their mind and where it's at now, but look at their ability to, recall these very special moments in their life and share them with them, even if you're going to have to share the exact same story with them, maybe 20 times that week, do it.
Absolutely. No, I love that advice. For about 6 or so years, my grandpa lived in our home too when I was a teenager, and you just get a a different perspective until he had to, at some point, eventually move into a home. But he had a different perspective on sometimes their memory almost seems to improve in those long-term areas where it's like, wow,
Right.
how do you remember that? But there was definitely a regression, at least in his case, where it's like, he could remember his mid-adult years, and then it kind of, retrograded back into childhood. And it's very important. I think they need somebody to talk to and have that relationship with, and not feel so lonely and isolated. So that's great.
Right.
What would you say is something that you would share out of our conversation today? What's something that you would hope that listeners could hold on to and kind of take back into their own business or maybe their relationships with others, and a piece of advice that they could implement today?
Well, I would say, building trust and relationships over time. I mean, that's definitely the avenue that I take with my business, but I think you could, translate that to any business that you're in, to make relationships, that you may not benefit financially, right away with a relationship with, say, if you are, I don't know, I'm trying to think of if you were a financial planner and somebody hasn't, instantly just taken your word for it and invested with you, it may pay off, in the long run where they a situation in their life comes up and they're inheriting money from their parents or something, and you have given them a year of getting to know them. I guess that's an example I can think of, but I'm just always trying to just let them know that I'm here for them. They might not be ready to talk to me yet, but when they are ready, I'm around. And when we do start talking, there's, no pressure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. And sometimes even if it's not that individual that themselves ends up needing your services, you having built that strong relationship can lead to additional referrals and positive reviews nonetheless. And I think at the end of the day, if you can go to sleep at night knowing that you did the right thing, I think that makes all the difference in the world too. So if somebody wants to work with you, Amy, what would be the best way for them to get in touch with you, and what does kind of that getting started process look like?
Honestly, the best way to get in touch with me is either to call or text my cell phone. I use that as my work phone, and it's, so it's always with me. And I, if I happen to be in the middle of giving another family a tour, I always reach back out to somebody within, I would say, 2 to 3 hours at the most. They'll have a call back from me. So yeah, if I can leave my number here, it's 402-681-7439. That gets directly to me. And like I said, I am never bothered by a call at night or on the weekends, because, I understand that might really give you the opportunity to kind of put your mind at rest and get some sleep. And even if it's something that we don't, work on together for another week or whenever you're ready, just to have an initial conversation with me. And then the other thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned is how important it is to, for me, this is something I've noticed recently, that I've had a lot of families that I've been working with where maybe mom and dad who I'm, working on, it's a second or a later, marriage in life where mom maybe has kids from, previously, and dad has kids previously. And I actually welcome and love being kind of that middleman, because that's sometimes what will happen in families where it's like, if people don't feel like they're being communicated with, they feel like they're left out of a decision that is happening. And so that's another important piece to remember. Like, it's not the first person who contacts me is the only one I talk to, and they may have been my first contact, but I usually end up talking to and working with, directly with my client, any and all of their children, sometimes their neighbor, whoever it is that had those concerns. And I keep everybody involved so they understand. And I think it just helps them that they realize like it wasn't the favorite daughter that made the decision or, that kind of situation that's going on.
Yeah, those family dynamics are so important. And it's a time that's just stressful for everybody. So
it is.
It's great that you can be there to kind of help reduce that and kind of facilitate communication to make it an easier process. So yeah, and we'll definitely in the show notes include your information there. So definitely want to invite everybody to give Amy's with Clare at Senior Advisors a like and follow and reach out to her directly. Again, we'll put that information in the show notes, but really appreciate you being here, Amy, today on the Local Insider Podcast.
Thank you so much, Nicole.
Thank you.